Why don't you outline screenplays?
Well, I think I described before what I like to do. I like to just do all the beats. I like to write the first act, have the the second act turn and the ending, because I've found that like if you are too kind of sometimes too methodical about figuring it all out up front, you can't discover certain things. You'll find things that are happening along the way that are like surprises even to you, and sometimes that stuff becomes even better. You're like, oh, I didn't think about that, but how do I get these guys from the end of Act 1 to the second act turn? And you just discover it. I know some people that like to do a complete beat sheet. You have to do that when you're hired to write things. You have to give them you can't do that. But for a spec purpose or writing a script, you can, have your own process. So it feels a little stale sometimes when you have everything beated out, and you're like, okay, because that 2 weeks you're writing out the beat sheet, you might get a better sense of your story and your characters 4 weeks into writing the script and find things along the way that like, oh, I never thought about that guy like that or this like this.
Do you get bored when things are too easy?
Yeah.
You like a challenge?
Yeah.
Because I get the sense you figure things out very easily, and so you want to go to the next level almost?
Yeah, especially, well, I think too, you have to kind of, as a screenwriter, like reinvent like where you want to go every couple of years too, unless you're happy in the area that you're in. So yeah, no, I guess I do. Yeah, I never thought of it like that, but yeah, I think I'm always trying to like reinvent or kind of get to the next level or do certain things and figure out how it works. So yeah, I do. I like to make things hard on myself.
No, but that you just enjoy a challenge. You like to be, you don't, it's kind of like, I hate to use, like a lab rat. I mean, I'm sorry but they get the cheese, they get out, okay, they solve the thing.
Yeah.
If you want to really boil it down to that. But we all kind of want something more, because if things are too easy, then it's just, everything's boring and then you can become depressed.
Yeah, and I don't know where I get it from, but I'm really into like getting things finished. Like I think I said earlier, I'm never happy till something's done. I enjoy the process more, but I've been on movie shoots and things where it's getting made and I'm miserable the whole time because I still think something's gonna go wrong, when it's finished. And then I also have a weird amnesia. When projects are finished, I don't think about them again. I just move on. I think of most of the films I've worked on that have been made, I've maybe watched once. I don't ever go back and watch them or think about them. And John Carpenter has that attribute. If you watch the Brian De Palma documentary, he has that. Not that I'm comparing myself to them, but it's like a good thing to have if you're gonna do this professionally. It's like, once you're done with something, you just move on. You don't even think about that old project again. It's like, what's next?
How is someone who doesn't outline so great at structure?
That's a good question. I think I just know how films work and watch a lot of films and just know that the structure will find itself. Because I'm very open to like, okay, and I think I always have a good understanding of like tracking. And tracking characters is a very important thing in script. You have to make sure that somebody hasn't disappeared too far out of the story. Like if you have a bad guy in something and he shows up page 20 and then shows up page 40, he can't disappear till page 90. We have to see what he's doing at some point. So I think I always have a really good understanding of like making sure we track people and like, okay, we've seen this character do this, now we have to go back to that person, we have to go find that person, catch them all up, put them where they go. So,
And how do you remember, do you almost have like bullet points like, okay, there's Joe over here, there's Mary, and then making sure that I'm still seeing their names somewhere within the last few pages?
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's kind of easy. For me, it seems easy. I know some people will like chart out where characters are, and so everybody has their own process, and you can do note cards and things like that. I kind of always have an idea where they're coming, going. And, and also too, that's also part of, you get better at writing too, you throw away any characters that don't mean anything to the story. If you're a newer writer and you have all these characters that don't mean anything, you're gonna have a hard time tracking people. But if you really pay attention to films, especially commercial ones, they don't have a lot of characters. There might be a lot of people in it, but it centers around a small group of people. The Godfather might be one thing, but I mean, if you look at Indiana Jones, it's always just him, and then they'll go to the bad guys, and then they kind of like, you're along the journey with him. So it's more like about tracking those people, but most studio films don't have a lot of people. Marvel films aside, you know, when the Avengers have like 8,000 characters. But even then, if you watch the Avenger movies, they're great at tracking all those different people. You know, they keep coming, going out of the story just enough so you don't forget them.
What about something like Crash?
Crash, that's a little bit different, but that's, you know, yeah, that's more the extreme. But I mean, that's a kind of different film. You know, it still is anchored though by, you know, it's anchored more by stories. You know, so yeah, that's a good example, but that's a little bit different. That's, you know, and I don't know how many kind of movies like that they're doing nowadays, because that was kind of hip for a while, you know, the non-linear, bouncing around all these multiple stories. So yeah, that's a different kind of movie.
Great.
But it works, you know.
Yeah, it was excellent. Can you provide a few questions that a screenwriter or producer should ask themselves before writing a movie or getting involved with a movie?
Yeah, I think the biggest question is, how do I get it made? You know, if it's you know, some kind of gigantic sci-fi epic that costs $400 million, you know, it's like a non-starter. But I think you just need to really ask. You have to be passionate about it too, and really, you know, want to see it to the finish line, because it takes a lot of work. I mean, you want to get paid, but you know, if money's your main drive, that's not always, you know, what happens. There's things I've worked on and worked on them so long that even though I got paid well, I probably ended up making, you know, $1 an hour, $1.50, you know, if you timed it out. But it was like, I was like, I'm determined to get this film finished. So I think that's the biggest question, because why write something if you're not going to try to really get it made or use it to get other jobs or create a career? You know, if it's just for your friends to read, that's a whole other thing altogether.
How many films do you think have been made where they were too ambitious in terms of the budget and
Oh, lots.
people just couldn't be told no?
That happens all the time. And I mean, it just happens in the sense that like you start and something goes wrong. Because with indie films, the budgets are so precise that if something goes wrong, it could screw the whole movie up. You don't get to shoot that. Now it's not 25 days, it's 20 days. You know, there's so many things that can go wrong. But I think that's where, that has very little to do with the screenplay, but more to do with the director and being able to like change things and adjust things on the fly and go, okay, that we can cut that out, we can move that to there, and we can save this whole thing and not have it be a mess. But it happens a lot.
So if you are hired for a screenplay and you do have to do a beat sheet and you submit it, and then a couple weeks later you come up with better ideas, are you stuck with that same beat sheet and that same progression?
No, you can, I mean, what you can do is if you're hired to write something, you have to communicate, you know, with the producers, because every step is tiered. It's like you get paid to start, you get paid when you turn in the beat sheet or the treatment, you get paid to start writing the script. But if you start coming up with changes or figure things out, you can just, you know, get the producers on the phone who've paid you to write it and throw your ideas at them, and they may love them. They might just say stick with the beat sheet. They might say, oh, that's great, let's try that. So it's a process. You know, you have to be in really good communication when you're taking money from people and working with somebody, and keep them informed. But you can't make wholesale changes and go, here it is, because your agent will be calling you, go, why are they calling me all pissed off and you did this wrong? You know, so you have to kind of like, you have to do what they want. They're hiring you to do something. It's like if they hired you to paint the house, you know, gray, you can't paint it red, you know, and say, oh, I thought this section would look better like this. So you're their employee, but you know, you get the job by coming in with your own take and your own pitch, which they like, but then it becomes theirs when they start paying you, and then you just have to work with them, you know. But yeah, most great producers, if you come up with a great idea, you just run it by them. They're like, oh, that's much better. So they're not resistant to it, but you can't just decide to go in the third act a totally different way.
Would you say a lot of screenwriters fail because they're not writing movies that Hollywood wants to make?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, it goes back to what I was talking about with, like, you know, the business side of it. You have to make money for people, you know, or it's not a situation where people are just trying to throw money away or light it on fire. So if you cannot create a screenplay that, like, producers think they can at least get their money back and some, because sales agents take a cut, everybody takes a cut. So you have to actually make some profit on top of it. Someone along the line is going to lose money. And that's not what most people want to do. You know, there's, like I said, there's some billionaires that just want to throw money at things and don't care, but those are few and far between. So I think, yeah, you have to be very honest with yourself about what people are buying. You know, you can't make some weird, you know, film that, like, speaks to you and your small group of friends and expect somebody to give you $1 million to make it and no one else gets it.
And the universal appeal that you had talked about previously, just sci-fi, horror, and action.
Well, that has foreign appeal. So yeah, that's part of the process too. Is like you have to keep in mind that like the foreign market, there's two markets: the domestic market, which is North America, and then the foreign market, which is the rest of the world. That some movie about skateboarders in Hollywood, in love might not translate in Japan the same way a horror movie would or a thriller. So that's a whole nother section of money that comes in on a film. So yeah, it becomes harder and harder the more esoteric something is. Now that's where sometimes the greatest movies come from, like Gaspar Noé makes insane, crazy, esoteric movies that do really well and are cool. But again, those are few and far between. And in America, I think they're less likely to take chances. In Europe, I've worked with a few European producers, and they seem a little bit more, into the art. They also treat directors and writers a little differently, with a little bit more respect and or more the auteur theory than here. But it's part of the problem is if you don't do stuff that people can make money off of. It doesn't have to be commercial, but it has to have a market.